Boker Tov, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our weekly morning shiur and Chassidut. Now we're learning Pirkei Avot. Yesterday we learned Perek Shlishi Mishna Gimel, the third chapter, the third Mishnah, and now I would like to learn together one point from a previous Mishnah, Mishnah Bet, and then we'll go on to Mishnah Daled. Mishnah Bet talks about two people that are sitting together. One scenario is that they're learning Torah, then the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rests amongst them. Another scenario can be that they're sitting together, but they're not learning words of Torah. And then the Mishnah says, Harei zeh moshav leitzim. This is a group of silly people who are just wasting their time. Then at the end of the Mishnah says as follows. The end of Mishnah Bet. Minayin, how do we know afilu echad sheyoshev v'osek b'Torah, that even one person that sits and learns Torah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him a reward? So I have a proof. Yeshev badad ziyidom kinatal alav. A person sits alone and is quiet, for Hashem places upon him a reward. So the question that we want to ask over here is, it's an interesting terminology that the Mishnah uses, that Hashem is kovea lo sachar. Hashem establishes for him a reward. Usually, the expression is, in regular Hebrew, noten. Hashem gives him a reward. So what's this interesting terminology of kovea, establishes? Hashem establishes for him a reward. It's not the normal, the usual terminology. In addition to that, we have to understand what kind of addition is the Mishnah adding to us after we have a clear pasuk in the Torah. Im b'chukotai telechu, if you will go with my statutes, which means learning Torah, v'natati kishmechem b'itam, and I will give you rain in the right time. Over here, thank you very much. A person learns Torah, Hashem gives him a reward. We know that already. This Mishnah, the subject, the main theme of Pirkei Avot, of the ethics of our fathers, is meant in order to teach us lifnim mishrat hadin, beyond the letter of the law. So why does the Mishnah have to give us something seemingly so basic? So we can understand this based on what the Maharal of Prague learns in the Mishnah. He reads as follows. In the end of the Mishnah, it says, Osek b'Torah. How do we know that even someone that sits and is involved, doesn't say learning Torah, it says who is totally involved. In the beginning of the Mishnah, when we talk about two people that are learning Torah, it says two people that are sitting, and the yesh beineim divrei Torah, and they have divrei Torah between them. So why over here, when it comes to one person learning Torah, does it say oskin, that they're totally involved? And the answer is that with the explanation of the word osek, it's explained that the intention is for someone who has a tremendous effort in learning Torah. When we learn Torah, there are two parts, more than two parts, but generally speaking, two parts. You have the actual learning of the Torah, and then you have the hashka'ah, the yigi'ah, the sweating and the effort and the toil of learning Torah. Not just on a silver platter, but when we learn Torah, we need to learn Torah in a way that he works very hard. The best example is like the word asek, osek. Asek means an occupation, and someone that is the boss, that is the employer, has a different approach than the employee, than the worker. The employee has a job. Today he works here. Tomorrow he works somewhere else. And there's nothing really that's tying him. He doesn't, he works 9 to 5, and then the rest of the day he leads his life. But when you are the owner, the director, the one that takes full responsibility, then you're the head and body into the business. Even when you eat and sleep, you are concerned, you are thinking, you are planning, you're an entrepreneur and trying to innovate different ideas and different new methods of getting people to buy your product. So when you have two people that are learning Torah, one second, so that's how you're supposed to be learning Torah. We're supposed to be learning Torah in a way that we're totally head and body into it. Not just, oh, by the way, I'm on my phone, and by the way, I'm doing a business deal, so by the way, I'm also learning a little bit of Torah. On the opposite. I saw something pretty funny. There was a car a couple of weeks ago that it was full of dust, full of really dirty car on the outside. So someone wrote, as if on the window with his finger, but he says, dust for sale and with a little bit of a car. That's an Israeli joke. In other words, instead of saying a car with a little bit of dust, it's a dust with a little bit of car, or someone that makes tuna. So most people have a little bit of mayonnaise with a tuna. And some people have so much mayonnaise that you can serve mayonnaise with a little bit of tuna. So that's how the learning has to be. It's not like there's something else, and by the way, I'm learning Torah. When you learn Torah, you're head and body into it. And it could be you're learning Torah for an hour, it could be for half hour, even for 5 minutes. But when you're learning Torah, it needs to be kovea, it needs to be osek. You need to be totally immersed into the learning of the Torah. So now, when you have two people that are learning Torah together, so each one encourages the other, it's obvious that you're going to be into it. It's also quite difficult to be involved with other stuff when you're learning with someone else. But when you're learning alone, it's possible that a person is not necessarily head and body totally immersed into the learning of the Torah. That's why the Mishna says, you have a person who is fully invested, totally immersed into his learning of Torah. Then Hashem says, I will be kovea lo sachar. I will establish from a sachar. And when you say that we're establishing reward, which means that in addition to the regular quote-unquote sachar that the Torah tells us in Parashat Bechukotai that we mentioned earlier, v'natati geshmechem b'itam, I will give you your rain in the right time, and so on, Hashem will give him a permanent sachar, because since this person has learned Torah beyond the letter of the law, totally put himself into it, totally separated himself for those moments from the disturbances and distractions of the world. So Hashem says, I will be kovea lecha sachar. I will establish for you not just a regular reward, but an outstanding, extraordinary reward, something way beyond the regular reward that a person may deserve. Let's go on to Mishnah Dalet, Mishnah 4. So we're in Perek Shlishi, 3rd chapter, Mishnah 4. It's a relatively speaking short Mishnah. Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinai Omer. Rabbi Chanina, the son of Chachinai, says, Haneor balayla, if someone is awake at night, v'hamahalech baderech yichidi, and someone that goes alone on the way, and number 3, like most Mishnahs that have 3 points, umefaneh libo levatala, a person who wastes his time and turns his head away from kedusha, and turns his heart, turns his thoughts away, and then does wasteful things. This person is endangering his soul. So let's go one step at a time. Haneor balayla, if someone is awake at night, someone that's awake at night, usually HaKadosh Baruch Hu made that we should sleep in the night, which means that under regular circumstances, as the Rambam says, that we're supposed to have a third of the day should be sleeping. Haneor balayla, so that's the nighttime. Hashem created the nighttime for the sleep. Hopefully when Mashiach comes this minute, then we're not going to have any more darkness, no more sleep. We'll be able to serve Hashem around the clock. That sounds amazing. So Haneor balayla, if someone's awake at night and misses out on this need of sleep, then that is not safe. And a person should be careful, even if they're going to be up at night, at least to sleep a little bit by day. And it actually says that there's no better time to learn Torah than at night. But the point is that a person should take care of themselves and make sure that they are safe and healthy. Number 2, Someone that walks on the way alone, especially in the olden days when there used to be, it used to be very dangerous in the forest. They used to travel, and when you walk yourself, it's much more dangerous than walking with someone else. Even having one person next to you that is already special, especially when it says in our sages teach us that if God forbid there are these mazikin, the different evil spirits in the way. So when it's one person, the evil spirit can Khalila have an effect. But if there are two people, more than one person, then the person will not have. Then the person will not have any. There's no reason to be to feel in danger. Especially the Bartanora says when a person walks alone and he thinks to himself wasteful things and shameful things, then that is another reason why to be extra careful not to be alone and to be with others in the company of others. And finally, umfaneli bolavatala, and a person turns his head away. It's almost as if he should be learning Torah, he should be involved in doing mitzvahs, and he intentionally turns his thoughts away to waste, levatala, and waste his time. And unfortunately today, with modern technology so available and accessible at the tip of our fingers, very often people today find themselves in this situation because it's really important not to just waste time. I'm not even talking about not being involved in things which are against Torah. I'm talking about just the idea of wasting time is wrong, unhealthy, and therefore a person can be endangering themselves Khalila. And if a person will learn Torah, how much more so the way we learned in the beginning of today's class, in the last portion of the second Mishna of Perek Shlishi, talked about learning Torah in a way of osek, being totally immersed, totally involved, and totally occupied with your entire being in the learning of Torah. Then this saves us from different spirits and different dangerous things on the way, and obviously from not spending wasteful time in all kinds of wasteful matters. Rather, we should be involved with more quality, especially spiritual quality, with learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, and helping others. Shalom, shalom, toda rabba. Thank you very much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow morning, Friday morning at 9:30, we'll be having Kabbalah Cafe, and I look forward to seeing all of you there, Bezrat Hashem. Shalom.